Well, good morning, folks. Hey, it is Shooter Scott Henderson. It is April 9th, about 1:42 in the morning. Trying to get caught up on these charts here. I've been just drilling down, looking at transportation, trying to find some holes there that might be affected by these tariffs. It's a desert out there, in short. Let's take a look at the indices, and this is going to be a short recap about swing trade notes and different positions over the last couple of articles. Of course, at the end of our presentation, please do review our disclosures. Starting off with the SPY, we haven't quite got to resistance yet. What I classified as resistance is sort of as a shelf up here. We got this push and then it rejected. Very important hurdle. We need to clear at that 576. I don't know if we get there, to be honest with you, at this point. Structurally, it looks like a 535. All right. So, in other words, I'm expecting this potentially to turn to an impulse leg down. At least that's what I see at this point. So I'm looking at this as our 1. So our 2 will come in something like this. 3 will be the longest wave. My concern is this could be pretty aggressive. So this flush, it most likely spot is here. However, the breadth of the impulse leg would imply something much more aggressive as a push to the downside if we get it. Because right now we are seeing dip buyers and they are coming in. Every dip is getting bought and the sellers start to disappear. But I don't think the funds are back in buying yet, even with the trade talks news. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ. Very similar look. Now we are testing our prior 492 zone up here. However, we really don't hit that resistance till 503.33, like I mentioned Wednesday evening in our major markets. So right now, these are the two visual outcomes that I see. We could go towards all-time highs. I don't know exactly what has to be resolved in the tariffs for us to accomplish that. But there is some news in the markets that the Fed might actually shock the markets and do a rate hike on anticipated inflation, depending on what actually happens with the tariffs. The auto sector is a great example of what happened out of the UK, is we actually are in a worse position from the tariffs coming out of the UK, or certain car manufacturers are, because it basically reduced the tariffs on luxuries and increased or maintained the tariffs at 54% on, for example, cars manufactured elsewhere, like, for example, Mexico, and then shipped into the United States, even with a higher propensity of parts manufactured in America. So that skew, I don't know how that's going to iron out at because when the deals are done, in other words, trade deals are done, they are cemented during the remainder of this administration. It's not likely that they change. So any baked in results that we see there, ultimately could affect rates. And that, I think, is a quagmire not everybody's pricing in it. So, all right, let's jump to last week's article. We had a firm, not really a big winner, a couple bucks, but it still worked. Even with, I would say, weak earnings to some degree. It held its own if you held it through it. Pins clearly worked. Nice numbers on the options because they went pretty well. I think there was a couple people up in, 75% plus on those. Now, like an idiot, I trimmed into FOMC and didn't buy some things back. ONAN or on worked, right? HIMS worked like beautifully. Just look at the breadth of that candle there. I think this goes back to $80. I'm holding some 55s, some Junes, because I think it gets up to that $60 line up there. I think it gets up there, and then maybe we reject and back test, etc. Now, net was not something that I opened. However, it was in the article and it did work. We're sort of, I don't know if it's the stage I'm at in my trading career or not, but do what I say, not what I do. Sometimes I'm a much better analyst than I am a trader. And just being candid, there's certain things I like. A lot of factors in my personal life that affect that, mainly sleep. So, all right, Wolf, moved 8%. Nice little name. If you did well, you took the $3 calls or just common shares. It was a nice move. Then Nibis definitely got going off of our alert. just a little breakout over 28. I mean, not a huge move at this point, but still it worked. Now, OKLO actually pulled back a little bit from our alert, but still it's working. Let me jump into some of the prior. Monster from our alert is absolutely just killing it. I mean, what are we up? 75 bucks since my alert. Can't beat that. Taiwan Semiconductor, even though it's faded here a little bit from our alert at 160, up at least 17 bucks still. From the Russells, as I was saying down here, if we're going to get going in the markets, the Russells has the best shot at moving. That was sort of wrong, but it still moved in the right direction, and you should be up about 9 bucks if you took that trade from the alert. Taking a look at Amazon, really hasn't done much. The challenging part here with Amazon is I think the tariffs aren't baked into this yet. So if you have a position in Amazon, I'm going to leave it up to you whether you hold it or not. I'd probably trim and run. Now, 4, we alerted right at about 82. We work with about 85, so we're about 3 bucks of the money. Now, Boeing, we saw a nice order. This nice move, 192. We were talking about this at 160. So it clearly is working. Now, Block has not done as well as I would have liked, but, on our alert back here at 38, we're up to about 44. So the general consensus is if you take my article in Swing Trade Notes and you put on a position in those trades, you really have not lost, except for, I think there's maybe 5 names, really in the last 6 months that didn't work from where we posted them. So obviously, risk management, you're your own captain, so obviously those positions, you want to make sure you consider your risk, etc. But that's my 2 cents for this week, folks. Great trading. Until next time, please like and share the video. And of course, we highly recommend that you join us in Swing Trade Notes and the rare chat room at fundamentaltrends.com. We'd love to see you there. Great trading. Until next time.